Shannon Popkin and Neinhuis, thank you so much for being on the Compared to Who show today.
Thanks for having us.
We're so excited to be here, Heather. Thank you for inviting me back.
Yeah, well, Shannon, you and I have had good conversations around comparison before
Mhm.
and control, which is another fun topic. And I think we had another, was it just comparison and control that you and I talked about? And then on your show, we talked
Yes.
about some of the body image stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, it was a
So,
great conversation.
oh,
I loved it. Comparing
yeah,
our outside packaging, right?
yes, so good. But y'all have been doing a lot of talking about this comparison issue in the realm of our teen girls. And I
Mhm.
think every woman listening, no matter what her age, probably knows a teen or is seeing, this happen with teen girls. And it's not new, is it? I mean, I remember sitting on my bed reading 17 magazine,
Yeah.
picking out, turning down the corners of the pages of the girls that I wanted to look like. I mean, this is an age-old problem, but I'm excited that you two are here. And today we can kind of dig into like how do we help our teens? And it's not just girls either, is it? I mean, it's boys too, but how do
Yeah.
we help our teens with this topic of comparison? But Shannon, I know you've been talking about this topic for a while, but
Mhm.
Lee, I don't really know anything about you. So I would just love to hear kind of how you got to be part of this conversation and what your background is.
Yeah, I'm Neinhuis. I live in West Michigan, not too far from Shannon, at a Christian camp and conference center. My husband is the director of maintenance and facilities here. And so we live at summer camp. And I have written and spoken full time for about 10 years now, with a background in youth ministry and really just uh, now a couple of books in, began to realize that a lot of the problems we face as grown women, we actually find their genesis of the problems in our teenage years. And so, uh, when Shannon's book came out, Control or not Control Girl, Comparison Girl, she called and said, "Would you be willing to endorse?" And I said, "Yeah, I would love to do that." But if I were real honest, Heather, I did not think comparison was a problem in my life. I feel pretty confident in
Mm,
who God made me to be. And then, probably like you, I found myself in the pages and I just, I was just saddened by that, but so grateful that Shannon had done the hard work, of digging through these issues and revealing them in my life. And I said to her, as I submitted the endorsement, this has to be a teen girls book.
mm.
And she was like, "Yeah, but I don't write for teen girls." And I laughed and I was like, "Well, I hope you find someone who does, And ultimately, God just kept bringing this back over and over again to Shannon and I. And so we just linked arms and had the opportunity to write. I'm just ever so grateful for it.
I love it. Okay, Lee, I do this to my coaching clients all the time. I don't normally do this to podcast guests, but can I put you in the hot seat for a second?
Sure.
Why do you think you did? Why did you think that you didn't have a problem with comparison? Like, that's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, I have always had a pretty strong identity.
Mm,
I came to know Christ at 17 years old, and that was enough baggage up to that point to
mm,
recognize that I needed to be someone new, and
mm,
Christ made me new. I had no desire to go back to who I was.
mm,
So at 17 years old, it wasn't like I grew, I was 4 years old, came to Christ, like this terrible sinner at 4 years old. No, I was 17 years old. I had a lot of baggage. I came from a very broken family. And so I was a new creation. I was
mm,
very aware of that. And very quickly, people identified in my life that I cared about that I was a Bible teacher. And so they said, "Oh, we think that you're a Bible teacher." Like, praise God that I had a mentor like that,
mm,
and, they basically sent me to Moody Bible Institute. I didn't know my head from my tail at the time, but I just knew that God had a calling on my life. I wanted to serve him forever, and so since then, I have not questioned that
mm,
call of God, that new creation inside of me, and so when I really, came to Comparison Girl, I don't do a lot of sideways glancing. That's not in who I am. Um, but what I did find in Shannon's book and in the original Comparison Girl is that there's more than one way to compare. It's not just looking side to side and feeling inferior, it's also side to side and feeling superior, which, I don't think like I have a ginormous pride problem. Now I need to knock on something. But it was like, oh, there's all these ways to compare. And I just was finding this thread, this very subtle thread through my life of pride that needed to be rooted out and still needs to be rooted out. And so, yeah, Heather, I wish I could just be like, yeah, yeah, comparison and pride aren't a problem in my life, but nope,
Yeah.
that's not true.
Well, but what's so funny is I think for most people, they don't think about comparison and pride together, right? Like, I think that's pretty common. And for me, like my story, and I'll let you, Shannon, like jump in and say if this, like how this was part of your story, perhaps if it was, which I think it was from all I've read of you. But, for me, it was, I knew I wanted to be more like everyone else, or, well, those specific people I had chosen to idolize. I wanted to be more like them. Let's put it that way. But then I definitely had the pride aspect of I knew who I was better than. And in some ways, my comparison was like the world is a beauty contest and I will win when I am the best, which, is like a whole nother level of drive, I guess, behind it. And then, but even, so I was the person who got saved at 4 years old. And my biggest sin was, I don't know, maybe lying about eating an extra cookie or something. I don't know. Like I didn't have this rat sheet, if you will. Not rat sheet. It's called a rap sheet.
Rat. Yep.
Rat sheet.
Rat works
too.
too.
I
Totally.
have one. I didn't have one, so I don't know what it's called. but then that kind of like affected my testimony as well, because I think that fed into my pride, and I thought I was just good. And so then I didn't really need a savior because I was just good. And anyway, yeah, so I think pride and comparison, that's a fascinating combo most people don't put together. Shannon, what do you think?
Yeah, there's this quote that we often refer back to from C.S. Lewis. He says, "We say that people are proud of being rich or clever or good looking, but they are not. They are proud of being richer or cleverer or more good looking. Then if everyone else became equally rich or clever or good looking, there would be nothing to be proud about. It is the comparison that makes you proud, the pleasure of being above the rest. Or I would say it's the displeasure of being below the rest. It's like there is this insidious element of pride in all of our comparison. It's not just that we don't like for her to be great. We just don't want her to outdo us, right? It's like, yeah. So there is pride in comparison, and that showed up in my life. One of my first memories of comparison was when I, took a test one day at school, and my teacher passed out the test booklets, and the smart kids in the room got red books and I got a blue book like everybody else. And I came home, I was sobbing so hard, my mom could hardly understand me. Like, what's wrong? What's wrong? I got a blue book, like, what? And so I had been in this pullout program at my school. It was called Spectrum. And maybe it was for creativity. I don't know, but we called it the Smart Kids, got to go to Spectrum. And I know I was creative. I still don't know if I'm smart, Heather. Excuse me. But I was like, all the other Spectrum kids got the red booklets and I didn't. And so I felt like my cover was blown. See, I wasn't a smart kid. I was just like everybody else. And oh, the shame of it, to be lumped in with everyone else and not have this one thing that made me stand out, this one superior, like this tangible evidence that I was better than somebody else. And so, yeah, it has been interwoven into my life in dozens of different ways. As a kid, I wanted to be the smart one. As a teen, I wanted to be the pretty one or the popular one. As a young adult, I wanted to be the one who had a boyfriend. As a young mom, I wanted to be the one who had the perfect family. As an author, I want to be the one who has the best-selling books, right? It's just, I want to be awesome in every part of
Yeah.
my life and it keeps coming back. And so, yeah, I completely agree that these patterns that were settled in my heart as a young girl, and then especially as a teen, because I think as a teen, our eyes start opening to, oh, there are all these other ways that people are measuring and comparing that I wasn't even aware of. I didn't really worry about my appearance as a teen, but or as a young person, but I just remember going to camp one time and oh, there were all these different ways that the girls were dressing and they were, the ways that they were doing their hair. And I mean, like they were talking about like it's better to shower at night. And I'm thinking I wasn't planning to shower at all. Like this was camp. And so it was just all of these ways that I was measuring. And I came home, I went to camp this happy-go-lucky little girl. I came home this sick to my stomach, inadequate, like I have got to reinvent myself. I've got to figure this out. And so, yeah, I just remember my eyes being open to all of these new ways to compare myself and these lies really taking root at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting, I think. I wrote down a couple of things and I'm like, which direction do I want to go here? It's like when shame first creeps in, right? And the shame you said, Shannon, your cover was blown,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, now they know the truth about me.
Yeah.
And that's shame. Right? Because it's the
Hmm.
implication is the truth about you. It's not a good situation. But teens especially, and even preteens, I mean, this probably really talks, we're probably talking about this is happening at 12, 13, I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe even 11.
Yeah.
Um, that's that fragile time in life when you're first starting to develop your identity and figure
Mhm.
out like who am I and what am I good at. And then as that natural process happens, the shame comes in and it's like, well, you're not that. Well, you're not that. Well, you're not good enough at that. And I mean, what is the and I researched this question a little bit in my comparison book, but like what for teens, like where's the I don't know, I hate the word balance, but like where's the line between okay, to some degree, you do have to develop an identity in Christ, but then also, right, like I've got 4 kids. Like we got to figure out, like you're probably not going to be a professional like football player. So let's
Mhm.
figure out, like I know you'd like to do that, but let's figure out, like what are you actually gifted
Yeah.
for? So like there is
Yeah.
some natural degree of like we need to help you figure out who you are, who God made you to be, and yet keeping them from all that's involved in all that. That wasn't really a question, but I think you both probably have something to say to that
Yeah.
garbledy mess. Lee, it looks like you want to jump in.
Yeah. So I really, really think this is important as a parent to come alongside or as someone who loves a girl or a boy, actually, and not just tell them, um, correct their behavior, but help them identify what they're good at,
Mm.
where we see God working in their lives, who they are. Kids don't usually say, I'm an introvert.
Mm.
They don't have words for that their batteries recharge when they're alone or they're at
Mhm.
home with their people. They don't have access to that language. So when we as parents or someone who loves a teen sees that tendency in them, even, 5, 6, 7 years old, we begin to identify kind of core of who they are. And really, we need to do this work very carefully, right? Like not put what the words that we want to be over that
Mhm.
child, but
Yep.
what is actually there. And we participate with God in the molding of this perfect, um, like perfectly created child,
Mhm.
um, who desperately needs a savior. That's not that, but who he has made them to be. And we say to them, I'm beginning to notice that when you're upset, you like to go to your room. And, that usually you come out of your room and you just seem like you have your head on better and, you've just kinda done that work. You know what? A lot of people call that being an introvert. And I think that's really good. Or the opposite of that is when we see that the girls are following our girl around the playground, we go, oh my goodness, honey, I think God's made you a leader.
Mhm.
It's going to be really important. I see that that's a gift he's given you,
Mhm.
and start to call that out gently,
Mhm.
and help them identify, because a lot of times other people who don't love them and don't have their best interest in mind are going to speak words into them and over them that we don't want to have be a
Right.
part of their lives. And so, as someone who loves them, it is important to just always speak words of encouragement, but also help them identify the nuances that God's created in them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, I think about the word shy.
Mm.
That used to be like a trigger word for me. Like, don't you dare tell my child that they are shy. Don't you dare label
Mhm.
my child as shy. Like, they can choose whether or not they want to engage you or not engage you, but because they have chosen not to engage you does not mean that you get to put the label of shy on them. And it's been interesting. My seventh grader had a really rough well, she's not in seventh grade anymore. Let me back that up. When my daughter was in seventh grade, she's now 16. So hopefully she's not still in seventh grade. When she was in seventh grade, like got that label, and the teacher was constantly like, she's shy, she's quiet. And it was like, no, like, I'm okay with her just engaging to the level she wants to engage. And then she got to 14, 15 and just blossomed in an environment where people weren't constantly telling her that she was the shy, quiet one. So I feel that, Lee. I think that's definitely true. We've got to be careful how other people label them.
Well, and Dr. Kathy Cook's done a lot of work
Mhm,
in this area, but she wrote the Eight Great
mhm,
Smarts. And that is helping our kids identify there are so many different ways to be smart.
mhm.
Like Shannon was getting the red booklet until the day she got the blue booklet,
Mhm.
and but that's only one way to be smart. You cannot capture creativity in
Yeah.
a red booklet or a blue booklet. You just can't, like I am very creative, but I'm never going to draw.
Right.
So, and my son is very creative, but he's mechanically smart,
Mhm.
and those kinds of kids, when we continue to shove people into the categories that the world applauds, then they feel inferior all the time instead of just that they are who God created them to
Yeah.
be with the gifts and talents he's given them.
Yeah. So Shannon, how do you think, like, how do we help our kids as they are kind of being like corralled into these, okay, you're good at this, like you, right? You're in the smart class, but then how do we keep them from comparing how the other kids are being corralled and where the other kids are going and what color booklet the other kids are getting?
Yeah.
Where do we start?
Well, I don't think comparison in and of itself is wrong. Like we can't help but compare. Like we
Mhm.
can't, our kids cannot help but look around in the classroom and notice I'm different than the others. And it's not wrong for them to do so. The problem comes when we attach value with these differences, right?
Mhm.
And so like we like to use a measuring cup to kind of talk about this thing. So, picture your life like a glass measuring cup with lines on the side. And what's interesting to me is we do not have equal amounts in our measuring cup from God, our creator. Lee, you said this perfectly created person, but they don't have the same amount in their cup as the person next to them, even though they're perfectly created. They're unique. And so what the world says and what the enemy uses is take your cup and put it next to somebody else's and always focus on the lines and always measure, always evaluate yourself based on what you see beside you. And what we want to do as parents is call out like, no, you're unique. And sometimes you're unique because you have less than somebody else.
Mhm.
And that's by God's design. I mean, we talked in the book about how there are kids with special needs, and that does not mean that they have less value, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so helping our kids to see themselves this way and see each other this way, like these are just differences. There are not value statements attached to them. And one of the stories that we used in the book from the Bible is the story of the parable, or I'm sorry, the talents,
Mhm.
and how I think it's so interesting. Jesus gives three different servants talents, but he doesn't give them the same amount. He gives
Mhm.
one five, one two, and one one. And we look in on that story and we're like, there's a simpler way to tell that story. It's like, let's say he gave one of them they both got the same amount. Like they both got 3 talents. One of them buried it. The other didn't. That would be a way to tell that story if you were just calling out, what are you going to do with your talents? But he brings in the nuance that you do not have the same amounts. And so in that story, like who we designated as the hero of the story is the 2 talent guy, because he had less than the others, or than the one with 5. He had less, but he still invested. And we also called out that the guy with 1, he had less, but he didn't have little. 1 talent in our money would be worth, it's a measurement, it's like a 70-pound measurement. It would be worth over $1 million. And so if somebody gave you $1 million talent, and would it be a wrong to bury it? Absolutely. And so God may have given you less, but he didn't give you little. So I think these are the things we need to call out in our kids. Like, whether you have less than them, you still have a talent here. I still see this in you. You might not be the same sort of leader as her. You might be different. I remember having a conversation with my son. He had a best friend who was just exceptional in so many ways. And so was my son, but it was just different. They were both leaders. And I said to him one day when he was just sad about these differences, I'm like, you know what, honey? The basement of your heart goes down 6 layers deeper than everybody else's in that room. You know how you're a leader? You're a leader in that you look around and you see the pain in the room, and you notice people, you see things in them that everybody else misses. That's the way that you lead. And you're just a different sort of leader. You're still a leader, and God still finds value in this particular way that you lead. But you're different than your friend. You're both amazing. And together you are just like this powerhouse, because you lead in different ways, but together. And so, I think there are lots of nuances in this, but identifying is the first step, and then calling it out in them, and helping them see that it's not going to be the same as other people.
Yeah. But Shannon, Lee, I mean, I'm going to be 50 years old. I don't like to be different. Teenagers don't like to be different. You want to be the same. You don't want to stick out. You want to be the same. You want to fit in.
But nor do they like the endless pressure of measuring and driving themselves, and the shame of not being enough. Like, they don't like that either. And that is really unhealthy, and it drags them into all of the anxiety and the depression that they're facing. So this actually is, they don't want to be different. They don't want to be less than, but there's so much freedom in this, in just being who God created them to be versus who they want to be.
So how do we encourage them that this different is good, that this different is healthy?
Okay, so I live in the most beautiful place in the world. I swear it. Surrounded by orchards. My husband's a 5th generation fruit farming family. So his family has these incredible orchards all around here. And if I drive straight down the road, I end up in an orchard that is right now in full bloom with white blossoms. And in the middle of that orchard are these pink trees. Every so often, a pink tree is planted. And one day I was driving down the end of the road and I was like, Lord, I just feel like a pink tree. I mean, there are not like writers and speakers who do what we do, travel around, talk to people. And I said to the Lord, Lord, I just feel like the stupid pink tree. I just want to be in the middle of the orchard that's white. Why do I feel lonely when I've got a great career, a great job, a great ministry that you've given me? But I always feel alone. And I just felt like in the very, very quietest part of my heart, he said to me, I made you a pink tree because that's a cross pollinator. And that's the truth. The reason the pink trees are in there is because the apple trees that surround it cannot grow unless the pollen from the pink tree touches the pollen from the white tree. And that's what makes fruit. And there are going to be some of us that are pink trees for the rest of our lives. And the other day, my daughter who is exceptional in 1,000 ways, said, I don't fit. Like, I can't have the same friends. I don't fit. And I just said to her the other day, I was like, baby, I know this because the Lord whispered this to me too, that I am here to help other people bear fruit. and he put me here on purpose. I stand a little bit above. I don't fit. It feels awkward. And I think God made you a pink tree too.
Mm.
And it's given me language for the feeling that's inside that I have to hold in tandem with who he made me to be. Is that there's this part of me that aches all the time to be the same when he really created all of us. I mean, the world is not just filled with white trees. It would be nice if it was all filled with white trees, but then there would be no way to grow, and I think that this pink tree thing has merit in
Mhm.
our lives is, maybe you're musical, but whatever God's put inside of us, he has given us to not just help us be who we're supposed to be, but how to cross pollinate with you guys. And we're supposed to bear much fruit. It is according to God's plan that we bear much fruit. And we cannot do that alone. And we cannot do that if we're all the same.
Right. Right. That's functioning as the body of Christ. That's everyone using their gifts together, for our good and his glory. Yeah. I love the
Mhm.
pink tree. That's really awesome.
I was thinking as you were talking, Lee, some kids desperately want to fit in. Others want to stand out, right? They feel like they're just all vanilla and they want something that stands out. And I wonder if what they want is the opposite of what they have, you know?
Mm,
And so I think we have to coach them both ways.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think really what we all want, so I wouldn't say I want it too. We all just want to be
Both, right?
accepted,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's really the need under the need, right?
Mhm.
It's not that I necessarily want to be just like everyone else or look just like everyone else. I just want to be accepted and
Mhm.
loved and seen and known. And whether you're 13 or 22 or 52 or 82, I don't know. Do you grow out of it maybe in your 80s? I don't think so. But
Mm-mm.
we desire that. So, what kind of practical things? You all just wrote this brand new book called Comparison Girl for Teens. It's amazing. I was thrilled to endorse it. Love this book. If you've got a teen girl in your life, go grab a copy for her. It it's just really helpful. And you guys are just biblically solid. Like I've always appreciated that about Shannon. I haven't known your work, Lee, but like it's just biblically solid and it's just helpful. So what's one thing as we kind of close up our conversation today that you can encourage anyone who maybe like summer is here. like our teen girls are like worrying about all the things that their moms are worrying about with summer coming. Like how can we encourage our sons and daughters around comparison this summer?
Well, summer, we're talking swimsuits, right? We're talking what am I going to wear when the sun comes out? And so one of the images that we use throughout the book is a little pocket-sized mirror. Like picture yourself walking into a group and you've got your little mirror and you're like asking like, okay, do I look okay? Do I have enough makeup on? How am I doing? What are they thinking? How do I look? But when you are looking in this little pocket-sized mirror, you can't see anybody else.
Mm.
And so what we're inviting girls to and calling them to is, you know what, you snap that thing shut and you put it in your pocket because it's already been settled. Your identity is already secure. And that's the book, Comparison Girl for Teens. We're inviting them like, let's do this hard work. Let's do this work of settling who you are, who God made you to be, so that you can snap that little thing shut and put it in your pocket and enter into a room where you're not asking those questions. Those questions are already settled. You know who you are, and you know you are loved, and you are accepted, and you're unique, and you have something to bring. Like you have this measuring cup, and you were created to pour. So you're coming into this room with that measuring cup tipped, and the beautiful thing about the cup being tipped is the lines don't matter anymore. When you're ready to pour, the lines don't matter. And so you come into this room ready to pour, and you're asking, who needs a friend? How can I serve with my unique gift? You're not worried about your clothes, your outfit that you're wearing, or your hair, or whatever it is. Your eyes are on other people. How can I serve? And there's such freedom in that. And Lee, talk about influence.
Yeah, influence is really made up of uh, being able to look at other people and see their needs. So, really, the most powerful person, most influential person in the room is the one who has closed the compact because
Mm,
she is looking up. But studies tell us that, 8 out of 10 women walk into a room and assume they don't belong there.
Mhm.
Well, then what are we doing in the
Mhm.
rooms? What kind of rooms are we creating?
Right.
So let's create our own rooms. That's my deal this summer is maybe we invite people our way.
Mhm.
We create the next table where people are are not just, invited to sit, where we encourage them, we say, "Oh my gosh, you are so incredible. Come sit with me. I can't wait to
mhm,
get to know you." The influencer that every teen wants to be right now
Right.
is accessible to her when she stops looking at herself all the time and instead is just looking at Jesus, looking at the example
mhm.
he set. That's how we live me free in this measure of world.
Yeah, I
I
love it.
I'd love to just piggyback on that. Like I remember my kids over summer break with school always be having their eye on social media, like who was getting together and like feeling hurt because they weren't included or whatever. But I love what you just said, Lee. Like be the inviter. Let's make our own group. Who will you invest in? Who will you invite to camp with you? Who will you, champion? Whatever. Like, wouldn't that be a beautiful way to approach summer?
Yeah. And that's not just a message for our teens.
Mm,
That's a message for every one of us,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
You're gonna jump in, Lee?
Yeah, like you said, one tip, and this is my tip that I will take to the grave, I think, is fix it and forget it. Like,
Mm.
if I get ready in the morning, I do my hair, I do my makeup, I feel 100% better than the days I don't, number
Mhm.
1. And it's not like they're not ball cap days. There are plenty of ball cap days, but there is going to have to be a time when I settle in my mind, we are done thinking about this for the day.
Mm.
And I think that's a habit we can teach our teen girls to do too,
Mm.
is say, "Okay, you do not need to take 50 selfies." Like,
Mhm.
how can we get you satisfied in the way that you look? So for me, I need to find a swimming suit at the beginning of the season. I'm going to be at camp with all these people. I need to find a swimming suit I feel good in and then be done.
Mhm.
Like not think about it all the time, not measure my love handles or, wish my thighs didn't jiggle. They are not my enemy. I need to just fix it and forget it and quit thinking about it. What we meditate on is what we really just
Mm.
decide to chew on and like, we have to help our kids do that, but we have to model that first.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Amen.
Preach. Preach. That's good. That's really good. Yeah. And I'm thinking just like the other aspect to all this is, you know, are girls longing to be attractive, to be known, to be seen? When you're the inviter, like there's nothing more attractive to people than
Mhm.
being
Yeah.
invited, being
Mhm.
befriended, right? Like
Yeah.
that gives you attractiveness points that taking the perfect selfie and getting let's like just there's no comparison but
Mhm.
bump to the impact
Mhm.
that you have when you truly love others and see them.
Yeah.
That's what endears you to other people, and not that you're doing it for selfish or
No,
manipulative
right.
reasons, but just taking your eyes off of you gives you the freedom to love others well and be loved.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the subtitle of our book is Thriving Beyond Measure in a World That Compares. That's what we want. We want to thrive and we want our girls to thrive too.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Okay, well, tell everyone where they can connect with both of you because Shannon, you've got Control Girl, which, like I'm talking to women all the time in my coaching, and control comes up all the time. And your
Mhm.
comparison girl book. Tell everyone where, and you've got a new book I know coming out soon. So tell everyone where they can connect with you. And then Lee, it'll be your turn.
Sure. Well, we have a site dedicated to this book, comparisongirl.com. So come find us there, and that'll lead you to all my other books and, you know, other resources. But yeah, we have controlgirl.com and I like to hang out on Instagram. I don't know about you guys, but that's my favorite social media outlet.
Awesome. Lee, how about you?
Yeah, I have a couple books too. Brave Moms, Brave Kids, Countercultural Parenting, and now Comparison Girl for Teens. And I would love it if they came to comparisongirl.com. We've got quizzes there that we invite grown women to take. Uh Shannon started with, "Are you a comparison girl?" And I, wanted to say no, but I found myself there. I am quite certain anybody who comes and takes the quizzes will too, but not just for the first, but for every chapter of the book in every way that we found that you could compare. So we just love to invite you to come do quizzing with us and enjoy that this summer with your girls. But I hang out on Instagram too, or every social media platform, actually. I'm at Neinhuis, pretty easy to find, or bravemomsbravekids.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for being on the show today. It's been a fun conversation. I'm like, I was going to title it something with teens, but I don't know. We went so many places that are good for every woman. I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know if I'm going to categorize it that way anymore. This was a really great conversation.
Yeah. Thank you. As we're getting ready to launch, I keep saying, these are the answers that both she and you need, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
universal,
Yeah.
problem and solution.
Good
Heather,
stuff.
thanks for what you're doing too. Really,
Yeah, it's
really cool
really,
ministry. Really, really important.
Thanks,
yeah, we
Lee.
love you. We're so
Yeah.
grateful that you endorsed and so
My
thankful for
pleasure.
your ministry here at Compared to Who.
My pleasure. Thank y'all. And thank you for watching or listening today. I hope something today has helped you stop comparing and start living. Bye bye.